Today's devotion is titled, Live, You Dead Bones. We are on day 87, and if you're following along on the calendar, it's March the 28th, and today's morning rinse to get through the Bible in a year is Ezekiel 37 through 39. And you're going to read more of Ezekiel's visions. And in fact, there's a vision that God shows Ezekiel, and God showed Ezekiel this mass grave, and it was full of bones. And so read that story, and we're going to talk about the featured verse. And the featured verse is 37, 3 through 4. So go ahead and read that and come on back and I'll read you the featured verse. So the featured verse, Ezekiel 37, 3 through 4, he said to me, Son of man, can these bones live? And I answered, O Lord God, you know. Again he said to me, prophesy over these bones and say to them, O dry bones, hear the word of the Lord. And after this happened, we know the story where, in this vision, Ezekiel spoke to those bones and they came to life. The skeletons were made and there were muscles formed and they came to life. So I want to share with you a story. I was 34 years old. I was 6 months pregnant with my son, and I was attending the International Institute of Mentoring Conference for Women. And this conference was led by Judy Jacobs, and she is a gospel singer and a pastor. And how this mentoring program came to me was that I was attending Sheffield Family Life Center, and I was in the choir, and she came to visit as a guest singer one year. And this year happened to be 2000. In the year 2000, she came, and that's when I was attending Sheffield Family Life Center. I was in the choir, and she came up on stage, and she announced that there was this mentoring conference for women, and she called it the International Institute of Mentoring. And she was looking for people to apply, looking for women to apply to this conference and be in the program. And this program, this mentoring program, it wasn't just designed for women who were wanting to be leaders. It was actually for leaders. And I ended up applying. I felt very strong to apply, and I had the honor of being accepted into that very first year of the program, along with about 200 other ladies from across the globe. And to say that I was excited to be there is literally an understatement. I was flabbergasted that I would get selected. Having another leader in your life, or someone in your life, having somebody who is a leader see those leadership qualities in me is such an amazing feeling, and I'm sure that you would feel the same way. But walking out a lifestyle of leadership is not always easy. There have been times when, despite my devotion to God, I have felt dry or even dead inside. And, I've gone through certain aspects of that, and I'm sure that if you're listening or if you're watching this on my YouTube channel, or even reading in the devotional book, you probably can relate to moments of dry spells. And while I was at this conference, 6 months pregnant, I was in one of those dry spells. And I felt like, even though I was at this amazing conference, and even though I was so honored to be there, I felt like God was 1,000 miles away, and I could not figure out why. I would ask God, and I hadn't been struggling with any, major sin or concealing any kind of deep, dark secret. In fact, I had remained faithful to my devotions, and I continued to walk out my faith during this time. And I couldn't figure out why. There was still a part of my heart that felt kind of hopeless, as if I were in this valley of despair. I even felt somewhat forgotten, even though I was in this, and despite the excitement of being invited to this program from this well-renowned leader. And I loved God and desperately wanted to serve him in this, but something just was wrong. And every moment of that 3-day conference was just full of power and prayer and impartation. I remember this one day, the very last day, where we walked through this, wall of fire, basically, where all the leaders were there. And, every single person got their hands laid on and prayed. And then at the very end, we got this Israel Shaw, a prayer shaw. And I still have that to this day. There was one moment that I will forever be etched into my spirit as kind of a turning point for me and my son that was in my womb. And quite frankly, I was hoping to have him on today, but he is a senior in college and has midterms, and our schedules just could not get aligned to have him on as a guest today. So I will have him on again, but today was kind of a special day. I was really hoping to have him on. But anyway, I remember what I was wearing in this moment. I had on black pants, and I had this royal blue maternity blouse on, and I stood on the right side of the sanctuary facing the stage, about 4 rows from the front. I remember all of this. And when Pastor Jacobs began singing her signatory song, it's called Days of Elijah, I felt God call me to go down to the altar. And as I stood there in the front, and there were multiple women in the front, and we were worshiping and singing and what have you. There were multiple of us that had went down, and I knew that I was supposed to be there. And as I stood at the front, just crying out, God, like, what is it? Pastor Jacob started singing the verse to this song about Ezekiel. And the lyrics go, "These are the days of Ezekiel, the dry bones becoming as flesh." And as she sang on the stage, and I was desperately crying out to God to speak to me, to say anything. And I remember just begging him to breathe life into my dry soul and restore hope back into my heart. I just felt dry. And literally in a single second, he answered my heart's cry by, I can't even explain it. He was injecting life back into me. Such hope was injected into me through that song. And I cannot fully explain how, but I felt my spirit come alive. And then he whispered something that I will never forget. And he said, "You are not forgotten." I know that day, together, me and my son experienced this God moment where he may have even felt how I was feeling in that moment, when I was feeling dry and what have you. But in that moment, I know that together, me and my son experienced this God moment together. And I knew in my heart that he felt it too. And the cool thing is, the reason why I wanted him on as a guest is because I knew in that moment, God said, "Name your son Ezekiel, because he will be used to bring dry bones back to life." And my miracle of life happened on that day. I wanted to share that story with you. It's in my book, and it's very powerful. I've wondered, how is God going to use my son? I mean, how is God going to use all of my children? Every single one of them have moments and stories like this in my heart. I don't know the answer. I don't know the story of that. And I don't know how it will end, in the very end, when we are facing Jesus, when we are facing God. We'll know. I am encouraging you that if you have a dry day, or you're feeling just a little hopeless, or you're feeling a little dead inside, like you just need an injection, remember my story. And so the challenge of today is this. I want you to look up on YouTube or Spotify or whatever avenue you like to listen to songs. But if you go to YouTube and look up Judy Jacobs, Days of Elijah, you will see her performing it live. And so you will have a context of who I was under in this mentoring program for a short time. And listen to the Days of Elijah song. And let God jumpstart an area of your life that you have maybe felt was dead. Let him breathe life into you again in that area. and may your dry bones live. And if you know someone that needs this same prayer, then pray over them while you're listening to the song. I hope that this song encourages you, and I hope that this song brings life to you like it did to me. I will forever be grateful for the International Institute of Mentoring with Judy Jacobs and how it has changed my life and how that it brought my son a name. So when you pull out your journal and you are reflecting on this day after you listen to that song and watch it, I want you to write down, did God breathe life into you or someone else through you during the day today? Did he give you life? Did he inject that into you? I want you to write down what happened and write down how you felt when you listened to that song. It's not a long song. It's just a normal song. But if you listen to this song, I hope that it encourages you like it did to me. So go out and live, dead bones. Come to life. I'm going to read that verse one more time to you, or those two verses. Ezekiel 37, 3-4. And he said to me, Son of man, can these bones live? And I answered, Oh, Lord God, you know. Again, he said to me, Prophesy over these bones and say to them, O dry bones, hear the word of the Lord. And what is interesting, as I'll close out, Ezekiel, the man of God, the prophet that God called, was the one who used his voice to speak over those bones.